Hello, welcome to the Apple Insider podcast. I'm William Gallagher. This week's episode is brought to you by Magic Lasso and Masterclass. More from them later. Now, there's no reason you should know this or indeed even care, but I was away last week and it was carefully timed. This was a point of the year when nothing was going on and I wouldn't miss anything. And instead, where's Hilliard? I missed it all, didn't I? What did you do while I was away?
I think correlation here says that it's your fault. This is you leaving caused all of this to happen while you were gone. So that's all I got.
Right. I don't really know how to take that, but I've learned one thing since I came back. I can't buy an Apple Watch in America anymore, apparently, which I got to admit actually was a big shock. You hear about legal things coming, you hear about threatened bans, you never think they're actually going to happen. But as of about now, if I tried to go to apple.com and buy a nice Apple Watch Ultra 2, I'm out of luck, aren't I?
It's certainly a story that's kind of snuck up on us. I mean, we knew it was coming because this has been said. When did that court case get concluded? Like the ITC actually put
January,
this in,
I believe. Yes, there was a thing in January, a ruling in January, then a decision later in the year, maybe October or so, and then we went into. The
judge made the decision in January, and then the ITC ruled in, I think October timeframe, right. and with the mandate that it was going to shut down. But we all kind of forgot about it because we kind of just assumed Apple would find a way to wiggle out, and it seems that they have not.
Yeah, wiggle out or pay things. I read Apple's statement somewhere that basically said, like we are right. We are so right. We're not giving in to this. And Apple will never say it's wrong. We're giving in to this. But still, they seemed extra strident this time. And I can't remember ever an Apple product being taken off sale by Apple because of legal reasons. It is unprecedented.
It almost happened with the iPhone 5 with Samsung's little dispute way back there, and the Obama administration actually stopped the ban from going into effect. So I can't remember which iPhone. I probably got that wrong, but it's that time frame, just right. 2013, 15 era. But yeah, so this has never occurred. I mean, of course, we have, as of our recording, 4 days to have the White House Trade Administration step in and say, you know what, we don't need to put in a ban. They'll stay the motion until all appeals are complete, in which Apple likely might come out triumphant after the appeals, but we'll see. So the story so far, just to recap, is, I'll get all the years wrong, so I'm not going to say the years, but we're talking 2016 era. Apple was in conversations with Masimo, this company that developed smart technology for health, and they had a very fancy pulse oximeter for detecting oxygen using infrared lights in your blood. So basically, Apple hired a few key members of its staff and key members of a different company's staff who also sued Apple for reasons. Company name escaping me, but Masimo is the key one here. They brought in some key members of multiple companies' staff and developed it themselves. At least they claim to be. The issue here is Masimo claims that Apple actually just straight up stole the information, basically hiring someone who knew about it, brought them into Apple, and then built the pulse oximeter based on their own technology, their own patents, which is the claim. Anyone out there saying they know the truth and Apple lied and stole, or this is all set in stone and Apple's whatever, no one knows. This is actually still quite up in the air. The details are so splintered, and again, years ago, it's hard to say. I mean, clearly Apple is a company of means. They can buy stuff. They were actually in discussions, I believe, to buy Masimo actually to get its patents, so this exact thing wouldn't happen. But for whatever reason, the people they hired believed that they were sufficiently different enough, the technologies they developed were sufficiently different enough that would avoid patent disputes, which now we're in the middle of. So whether Apple's in the right and the wrong, this is where we are. A hung jury left the trial kind of just floating in the air, as it were. So nothing ever got decided from the jury trial. A judge actually ruled that Apple did violate the patents, and then the ITC said that they recommend a import ban, which is where we are today. So This is going to be going on for a while, but the question is, will Apple be able to bring back the Series 9 and Ultra 2 to sale while this is still under dispute?
Yeah, the bit I didn't know was that thing about Apple may have tried to buy the company. I talked to somebody once that had a company, did a very particular thing, and it's now kind of faded away, but at the time, Apple, more than expressed an interest, Apple directly offered to buy them. And this person told me they refused to go to Apple, and they talked through all the reasons. Basically, Apple just controls everything. You end up, it's very unlikely you'll end up with a good deal, he was saying. And all that work he put into it, he was determined they were just going to carry on without them. And I believe, I might be, some years ago, I might be misquoting him here, but I seem to remember him saying Apple was really surprised that somebody wouldn't take all of the millions they were offering, but there were reasons. So maybe it was the same.
And then Apple Sherlocked them the next year, right?
Yep, pretty much. Yes.
We've seen lawsuits like this before. They've never gotten quite this far. The reason why this one in particular is happening getting so far basically is interest. The United States government is much more focused on antitrust and things of that nature lately, and so they're definitely putting more effort into trying to prove that they are taking steps to control these giant companies. And this one just happened to be a juicy enough story that they definitely stuck to it. Again, we don't have all the details. Maybe there's some evidence locked away somewhere that shows Apple straight up stole this patent. We don't know, but as far as we can tell, there's a few solutions here. William, do you know what Apple can do to get out of this?
In that last moment, I was suddenly thinking, this is a hardware feature, but hardware is controlled by software. Could Apple just release a watch update that effectively turns off the blood ox thingy?
Well, so I wouldn't say turn off. So Apple, they're approaching this from a different direction. And Massimo says, no, this isn't going to work. But really, it's not up to them. It's up to the it's up to customs to actually make this decision. So regardless of Massimo's protests, and I might be saying their name wrong, you might have to enunciate multiple letters. I don't know, but Massimo, that word. Anyway, despite their protests, Apple is going to, apparently they have been in the last few days, working on a hot fix for the Apple Watch. We haven't seen it yet as of a recording. By the time you hear this, the update could be out. But they'll release an update for the existing Apple Watches with blood oxygen detection and basically change how it comes to a conclusion and what data is presented to the users. From what I understand, right. From what I understand, they are not turning off the sensor. They're going to change like the route the information takes, basically, to avoid the patented technology, which might result in less accurate readings or different types of information as the output, but they're not going to turn it off entirely and just have a dead sensor on the watch. That's not going to happen.
This is long enough now, and the company's gone that surely I can say this, but I worked writing manuals for a company called Apricot in the UK. It was making PC clones, and as I joined them, they were working. There was some legal case, and they had something like 72 hours to completely rewrite the BIOS in the PC thing, and it was exactly this. Yeah, that little thing, the basic input-output system that controls everything. They could not, that was the one thing IBM actually owned and could not be copied. So they went through the list of, these are all the things you can input to the BIOS, and these are all the things that come out. Do anything you like to make that lead to that, as long as it's not the same as IBM's one. And they did it in, I think, 70, it's a long time ago, but a very few days.
Reminds me.
So basically Apple's just going to faff around it and sort it out that way. Yeah, but it reminds
me of the BlackBerry movie that recently came out, where they I'm sure they dramatized the heck out of it, but they described there was a moment in the movie where they had to basically write an entire operating system in I don't know, a day or something. It was a ridiculous time frame, whatever it was. And that they just the dude stays up all night and he walks in and is like, I have a working thing. It's like, okay, good job. You know, it's congratulations movie. But no, this is an interesting solution. I think technically, like, again, governments are odd. They don't fully understand a lot of technology and customs. It's hard to say what stance they have here. We've heard very little from the White House. Actually, we got a statement, and it's basically President Biden has no input on it. They've basically passed the baton to the head of the trade office inside of his administration, and that person is now in charge of making a decision. And they're saying we're looking into it, and that was 2 days ago. So we'll see if they look into it fast enough, because they only have until December 25th to make a decision, and the window closes for a veto, and the import ban goes into effect. So
I quite like that, though. The buck stops over there.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So
just talking about BlackBerry, though, weird thing, at the start of my holiday, I did a river cruise down the Danube, and on the way, flying out, I read the screenplay to that movie, and on the cruise, I met a guy an engineer, comes from the town where RIM was formed and all this stuff. So it's a small world,
fun.
Really.
I wonder if the screenplay is anything as good as the movie, because the movie was quite excellent, honestly.
Yeah, well, it's a really good read, actually. Really? I was quite disappointed when it was over. I felt like I was enjoying this world.
Wow, that iPhone, that's gonna be something, huh?
Yes, exactly.
So we've discussed 2 of Apple's options. There are, I believe, at least 2 more. So
no, wait, I know one of these.
Okay.
Give up, abandon the Apple Watch forever. It was nice. It's done now.
Okay, that would be a third option.
An option?
That would be so. The other 2 options we have, and I'll let you pick which one you want to dive into. Apple could make up. They could just settle with Massimo, and they say their phones. They're sitting there in front of them. They're waiting for Apple's call to come any minute now. For Apple to just call and do a probably $6 billion settlement, some nonsense number that's nickels and pennies to Apple. But they have heard not a whisper from the company, because Apple, again, like you said, feels so justified, feels that they are so right that they just cannot fail, that they have to pursue this.
Okay, that's one.
All right, so
and do you know another one? Or
can you guess the final option? So we have, it's kind of a fork here. So either new hardware. So either we get an Apple Watch 9.1 hardware update in April, which really, I mean, come on, the way Tim Cook's supply chain works, no way.
Yeah, no.
I think Apple would actually be willing to just forego 7 months of revenue from the United States Apple Watch sales, because it's a big world. There's a lot of people out there, and the United States only makes up a very specific percentage. We don't have those numbers, but analysts have been writing in to say we believe that Apple's financial impact from this will be somewhat minimal. The cow is iPhone, and then they make their monies from services and Mac. Apple Watch is just this tiny wearable with a limited amount of profit per unit sold. Add that to the fact that only half of the United States even have iPhones, and you need an iPhone to have an Apple Watch. So it basically trickle all the way down to how much does the Apple Watch really affect Apple's bottom line. So from a purely Wall Street perspective, they're going to be all about it at these earnings calls, like, oh, what are you going to do about the Apple Watch? But if we go that long, I mean, it would be horrible for the brand, and I don't see it happening. Apple has to do something to fix this, I think, in the short term. Like, I don't see us making it to February without an Apple Watch Series 9 or Ultra 2 on the market. Like, that, it doesn't seem sustainable. But I don't think a hardware fix is going to happen. But obviously, the ultimate end of this is in September, when the Apple Watch Series 10 or X or whatever releases. It will just completely be a different system for blood oxygen detection, and they can just start selling that and remove the other 2 watches from sale without any worry. Because, funny enough, just to note, everyone out here is wondering, well, what about the other Apple Watches? Well, Apple Watch Series 6 and up and the original Ultra all have the same technology. It's just Apple doesn't sell them anymore. So Apple doesn't produce them anymore, so they don't import them anymore. So it's an import ban. This is not a sales ban. As long as they can get the stuff to the United States, it can be sold. So any existing inventory can be sold by Best Buy, B&H, any of those companies. The only person that actually can't, or company that can't sell, is Apple. So Apple is going to have a complete stoppage on sales, but everyone else can sell out their inventory, which could take a couple months. It really depends on how much backstock they have.
Just as a point of order here, I need to stress, you talked about the Apple Watch Series 10 or X. Whichever way it's called, it's still pronounced 10, so let's just be rock solid clear. on that. I'm making a very fine point there, but there's a reason for that. There are fine points in all of these legal cases that we don't know, and I said I was away for all of this one, but I've come back in time. That sounds like I've gone back into the past. I mean, I've rejoined the world at the same point that Beeper has been doing progressively more ridiculous, tiny little changes to try to get things to work. This business of getting iMessage blue blobs onto Android, which is apparently a thing for enough people that it was worth a lot of effort.
So from my understanding is we've hacked the system to maybe you need to sign up with your email to maybe you need to get a Mac. Now, what are they saying, William?
Yes.
Do we need to just buy an entire iPhone to have blue bubbles?
I know, it's wonderful, isn't it? The hack, the workaround to save Android users from buying an iPhone but still getting iMessage is buy an iPhone. I mean, I thought that was the answer anyway, but, no. Buy an iPhone, jailbreak it, then apply the hack, possibly over and over again, and leave your iPhone on at home all the time, and your Android phone can possibly, for a while, until Apple stops it, get blue blobs instead of green ones. I just no.
They're talking about like $50 iPhones. That's got to be like an iPhone 6, right? That's just kind of maddening.
Well, apparently it would work with any iPhone. So
right, but I'm just saying, like, they're going so cheap as I wonder if Apple wouldn't just, because there is a services end date on Apple technology. I don't know if people know this, but eventually things do just stop. If you have a really, really old iPhone, like if you picked up an iPhone 3G, do you think you could send an iMessage today? I wonder. I do know that like things like Apple Music and Apple TV don't work on older devices because those require certain parameters. But I wonder about iMessage. There is a page somewhere in Apple. We don't have time to do this live, but I'm sure someone can write to us and tell us. But there is an end of life for old devices. I don't think it's the iPhone 6. It's older than that for sure. But it's interesting to me that this is their route. And of course, is it worth it? Does it matter? Why not just download a different app? I know that means telling your iPhone friend to download a different app. But really, if this is such a concern, if messaging and having everyone in the same place is such a concern, I think the answer is, why are you on Android? Really?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's easy for me to say this because I'm outside the States, and most people I message with, unfortunately, use WhatsApp, so that's what I did with them.
Yes,
every time I have to write about this, I have to go look up which colour is iMessage and which colour is text, because I will get them the wrong way around. That's how unimportant it is to me here. But
it is funny.
You read things, you hear about teenagers in the States being under pressure to conform and to buy iPhones because of this stuff, but you would hope that teenagers would be rebelling. They would be choosing to go to Android if all their friends are on Android. Come on, American teenagers, do your job. No? You don't think? Or are teenagers different in the States?
Well, the teenagers are the ones who are all buying the iPhones. Honestly, I don't know who's really doing this. Like, you have to think it's a subset of a subset, because I'm assuming this has to do with kids, teenagers, young adults who maybe just either don't have the money or don't have the care to go get an iPhone. Sure. Maybe they're finding that workaround so they're not excluded, because basically what happens, and I do this, I know, but I don't have really anyone on Android. I know one person in my contact list that I talk to regularly that has an Android phone. The other person I talk to regularly, I do through Facebook Messenger, sadly. But yeah, and that's like the one human I talk to on Facebook Messenger, funny enough. But that's just kind of how it works out. That one Android person is part of a larger friend group. They're just not in our group chat. We just exclude them because we want to be able to send stickers and do all the other stuff iMessage brings, and they're okay with that because they're mostly antisocial. Not to pick on them too much, but it's just funny because that's what I've seen happen in other groups of people. They just have a separate group chat that's a green bubble chat just in case they need to include that person. But if that Android person wants in, they have to have an in. They need to go buy an iPad or a Mac. And a lot of times that works out because maybe they want to have a drawing tablet, and there's no such thing as a good Android tablet, so you go buy an iPad. There's ways into it. It's just generally speaking, in the United States, if you have an Android phone, it's becoming the Facebook of smartphones. You're probably over 40 if you have an Android phone, and you probably don't even care, let alone just you're just going about your business, your life, right? This is the popular, like in the United States, the reason why Android is so popular too is a lot of times it's the free phone you get in subsidies. So if you have like food stamps, government issued food stamps, you can apply for a free smartphone. And I have family members with this phone. It doesn't have enough processing power to run Android. It crashes frequently. That's when you look at 50% of the United States uses Android, I would say a significant portion of that is that kind of smartphone. And then you have the people who are actually buying the Pixels and the Samsung Galaxies and stuff. So as far as premium $600 plus devices, the vast majority, I believe, are iPhones. And so we're actually running into this problem less and less. So you have to have a person in that category of a premium Android smartphone who also desires to be a blue bubble, who has the technical know-how, and I don't know, paying attention to the news cycle to know any of this even exists. Like, how do you know Beeper Mini exists unless you're like a tech nerd? And so is their audience 15 people? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, it really does kind of fall down once you get down to it. And Beeper Mini is going so hard for their core 10, 15 users. So it'll be, I'm surprised. I know we were talking about this when you were last on the show, William, and I said, I wonder if Beeper Mini will still exist by the time we record. Honestly, at this point, I don't think they do. If you have to have an iPhone to do this, or a Mac. They even said a Linux system, a Raspberry Pi. If you have to have a dedicated module for this, it kind of defeats the purpose. And now we're just back to square one.
Well, about 20 minutes ago, slight exaggeration there, the CEO of Beeper was saying, well, we're considering legal action against Apple. And then moments ago it was, yeah, we're not going to do that. We're just going to give up on this whole thing.
It's way too much money.
Yeah.
You have to have just real money to go after Apple, especially in their own turf. Like, this is their technology. This is their devices. They don't really have, like, no one really has a legal leg to stand on. That's why no one's gone after iMessage. Like, you don't think Google hasn't thought about suing Apple over iMessage? That when Apple can just turn around and say, yeah, what about Google search?
Yes.
I mean,
I'm really taken actually with this thing. I didn't know about people on food stamps can apply for phones. It's a shame that the phones aren't great, but that's a good thing that
it's great.
Service is available.
Believe me, it's amazing that they can get access to a smartphone. It is an Android phone with a touch screen. There's no, it's not an old feature phone. It's interesting. They get access to that kind of stuff. But again, these things are dreadful, slow. I opened an app and it you could count to 10 before it actually loaded any content into it. Like, it's that kind of device. And I've told people, I'm like, if you're going to again, I understand unfortunate situations. Like, don't get me wrong. If that's the phone you can get, that's the phone you can get, and you can make a phone call on it. That's great. That's amazing. But the people who have at least $15 can probably go out and buy a better Android device.
This episode of the AppleInsider podcast is brought to you by Masterclass, the online learning, I want to say experience, the online learning experience. It is online lessons in video and with downloadable further content, but it feels more like you are having a personal conversation with the very best people in your field, or also outside your field. I love this. I know that the Masterclass streaming platform makes it a meaningful gift this holiday season because that's how I first got it. I was given a year's subscription for Christmas, and with it, while I am a writer, I ended up exploring other videos. I ended up watching videos with Jodie Foster teaching me about directing and filmmaking. Where else are you going to get 4 hours of classes in the company of someone like her? I learned from Jodie Foster at my desk, on the Masterclass app, in my living room. It was like having a personal mentor available whenever I wanted her. And I tried her lessons. I began by sampling what she had to say because I could. Masterclass is a single $10 a month subscription or $120 a year. And so with that, I got all of her tutorials and the content from all of more than 180 other expert instructors across 11 categories. Every instructor is famously at the top of their field, and everyone is also excellent at communicating their knowledge and experience. So Masterclass gets you specific information, specific tools, but actually with me, I also found I was boosted by Jodie Foster. It was like she was talking to me as an equal, as someone who shared her passion for a subject, and it was actually uplifting. So you can tell I'm quite keen on Masterclass. So this holiday season, give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/AppleInsider15. Right now, you can get 2 memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/AppleInsider15. So masterclass.com/AppleInsider15. The offer terms apply. Thank you to Masterclass for their support of the Apple Insider podcast.
But I wanted to ask you one last thing before we move on from Beeper Mini. So where do you think this comes from as far as people? There's people out there demanding, like saying, like, so even legislators, like legislators, legislators are out there saying Apple is taking advantage of its monopoly power and its antitrust, and they need to take control of iMessage and give it to Google. What is it about Apple that attracts this kind of conversation and not, say, Google? I mean, I posit you this question. How is this different from someone saying, hey, Google, give Apple your search engine and so they can build their own private competitive search engine? Like, what's Spotify? You're the dominant music platform. Why don't you let Apple Music have access to your algorithm so their Apple Music recommendations can be better, so they can compete better? Like, why are people so after Apple's technology when there are, like, it would be the same thing as asking these other dominant platforms to overturn, like, give up their proprietary technology just so, you know, that little underdog Apple can get ahead. So I wonder if you have any insight into that.
Well, I wondered with Journal. I was thinking about the fact that Day One, for example, a journaling app, had this catastrophic data loss a few years ago. If Apple lost 1 pixel of anyone's data in Journal, it would be end of the world type stuff headlines. Whereas if Microsoft had a journal and they lost it, that would just be a feature kind of thing. At some point, Apple was an underdog, and I think it's come up and become so dominant that it's got some of the kind of corporate distaste that maybe some people have had from Microsoft in the past. I mean, Apple does some unpleasant things. I loathe all the stuff that's going on with unions at the moment. Apple is doing bad there, and you hear stories about its suppliers. That thing that the company developer who didn't want to be bought, he didn't want to be bought because he knew what Apple did with other companies and stuff. There are things there that you wouldn't like Apple to be doing. So I think there are reasons to dislike Apple, but it's just
Apple is not a perfect company.
But it's such a big target now. It's bigger than anything, literally. So, yeah, there's something about the underdog becoming the top dog at some point. It's a very British thing, actually. You tend to build up people here, and then when they get somewhere, you knock them down again. It's not a good British thing, but it is a British thing. That's the best I've got. It's a target, and for some reason, Apple gets anger raised out of people. I mean, you said most people, all but like 1 people you know are on iPhones. The giant majority of people I work with around here in the UK are on Android, and some of them are really blood mad about how bad Apple is. And you ask them why, and the answers aren't very most of them are gamers, and you can.
They were told to. Yeah, most people who feel that way, I mean, this applies to almost any conversation. They were told to be angry or upset, but they don't have any foundation for the arguments themselves, so they actually can't argue it. They were just told to be mad, and so they're mad.
Whereas we, as enlightened iPhone users, are not in any way told to be anti-Android. We're not programmable. They are.
Oh my goodness!
Is that where this is going?
Everyone is susceptible to propaganda. Keep that in mind. Yeah. It doesn't matter who you are. Everyone is susceptible. And I will say, just, you know, I know I'm the Apple fanboy on the show, but Apple isn't a perfect company, and there are some merits to Android. I understand why people choose it over iPhone. So, like, it's not like that over here. I really don't care what you use. I just find it funny that people really do get that aggressive. I used to be aggressive like that when I was much younger. I was very passionate. Funny enough, people who know me from the Navy would say that I was a very passionate Google Android user, Windows user, and hated Apple. So, yeah, and to the fact that I do anything like this today would be a shock to any of them if I met them in person. So, just goes to show, time changes, information changes, and always be out there willing to change your mind, people. You never know what you might learn or what you might find. But this whole blue bubble, green bubble thing is wild to me, and I think the Beeper Mini stuff is going to die, but I don't think this is the last we're going to hear about it, because even if they can't take Apple to court, someone will, and this is going to definitely, if the EU doesn't do something about it, I think the United States is going to step in at some point.
So when Apple adopts RCS, this other messaging service next year, shall we say, I know they won't cede the colours to any RCS users, but all the stuff of the images, the stickers that can go back and forth, presumably that will work. So all the practical differences would be gone. Do you think there will still be a fight because of the colours?
Yes. So Apple is going to allow RCS to be sent, but it's still going to be green text, green bubbles. Nothing on the surface is going to change. There's not going to be any indications in software that your RCS or SMS. As far as we're aware right now, Apple just intends on flipping a switch to allow this system to work, because it isn't encrypted, and it won't be for a while, because Apple's going to be working with the GSMA on adopting that, but who knows how long that'll take. The ability to send full quality videos and photos will be great, because I've had to do that in the past and have to go through different means, like online, storage apps and stuff like that, to send proper quality rather than texting, because they're like, why don't you just text it? No, you can't do that. Even with a photo taken on an iPhone, it gets so compressed that it's useless by the time it makes it to the other side. So all of that will be great, but Apple still holds all the cards. They're going to differentiate iMessage. As the day RCS is allowed on iPhone, there will be 10 more reasons to use iMessage. Like
Yes.
Apple isn't going to release RCS with iMessage as it is today. You're not going to be able to play Game Pigeon games. Everyone loves Game Pigeon. Everyone loves playing pool or basketball on their phone with each other in iMessage.
No, hang on. Sorry, Game Pigeon.
Yes, Game Pigeon.
That's a thing.
Yes, William, we can play a pool game later through iMessage if you want.
Okay.
No, it's...
Yeah.
It's it's a very popular. It's the go-to iMessage app. It's probably the only iMessage app anyone's ever downloaded. To be fair,
missed it completely. But okay.
No, but yes, it's still very popular. But yes, you're not going to be able to do iMessage apps and games over RCS. You're not, stickers will still send as JPEGs to RCS users, so it's not going to allow you to drag and drop stickers onto text bubbles. They'll just see it as so-and-so sent a sticker. It's still going to be Wesley reacted to your message and stuff like that. Like, unless Apple chooses to change how that is presented, which I doubt, they're going to build on top of that as well. I have a feeling with SharePlay, collaborations, stuff like that, iMessage is only going to get more integrated, more higher. They're going to build higher walls around the garden, so to speak. Just because, even if RCS is present, because it's just not going to be enough. And so people are still going to say Blue Bubble's better. People are still going to say you can't be in our group chat because now we can't do X, right? So we'll see how it goes, but I don't think it's going to change anything. And again, if you're that concerned about it, maybe just get an iPhone.
Yeah. This is turning into sports now, isn't it? The team colours you support, nothing necessarily to do with the actual... Anyway, I would like to say this, because I didn't realise you knew pretty much only iPhone users, and that by comparison I didn't. But one of the nice things that happened on the holiday was that somebody was an iPhone user. Most people were iPads and iPhones, and one person wanted to airdrop something to me. And for some reason, I wasn't showing up on his phone, so we held the phones together. You know the way name drop works?
Right.
And now he airdropped over. And that was the first time I'd used airdrop in that way. And it's great. I love the feel of it, the visual aspect of it, and I got the information, which was a crucial link to a page on Lego's website about a Lego typewriter, which is another story altogether. But I needed to know that. So in that moment, I particularly appreciated Apple's feature. You write about something, but you can't use it, and then you use it, and it's as good as you think.
Everyone I've showed that feature to, name drop or the new AirDrop, it's all the same technology with NFC. Anyone I've shown that to, they love it. Like they're just instantly, wow, this is amazing. Like they just want to do it again. They're just like, that's so cool. Like it's so funny. Again, that's just Apple's ability to bring kind of a sense of wonder to its technology with something as silly and simple as NFC, right? But no, it's great. I'm very happy that Apple's been working on opening this stuff up. And again,
you've just reminded me. I actually silenced an Android fan, by assuming that she was able to copy something on her PC and paste it on her phone. And then when I explained that that's what I do all the time with it, I got okay, there's that. Yeah. But anyway.
There's companies like Samsung and Microsoft working on different kinds of ecosystem plays, especially across Android and Windows. And none of them, like they've been trying to do this since Continuity was announced in like 2014. It never worked. I mean, it seems like a technology that you could get to work, but I don't know. The hardware and software technicalities of it are just so complex that you're never going to be able to just have an Android tablet and a Windows PC side by side and have the cursor move between them like you can with an iPad and a Mac. And looking at my desk setup today, I'm working on adding we've discussed this before, but my future plans for having a Mac in my work setup is going to be kind of a status board and server style kind of guy. And I'm working on...
Wait. The Mac will be a status board. I had an old iPad on the wall till it failed. The iPad, not the wall. And that was a nice status display. I liked that. But putting a Mac there instead... Oh my God, this is the wrong way round, isn't it?
Yes. And I enjoy the just complete flabbergastedness of people discovering what I'm trying to do. But basically, because we have a podcast to do, long story short, I'm going to be setting up right now my MacBook Pro, which will eventually be an M3 Mac Mini because I'm going to trade for that. But it's going to be a external display that's going to run Slack, Paste, like the Universal Clipboard app. It's going to run all of the things that need to always be running in the background. It's going to be my universal control module, so I can move my cursor between my iPad and my iPad mini while I'm sitting at my desk. So it's going to have all of those kinds of systems running a few feet away. Yeah. And I can, add some widgets to the desktop, or I can open desktop Chrome if I need to for work. I've discussed that before on this show. That's like one of the few things I need a Mac for, is running desktop Chrome for extension purposes. So like that, and that's it. It'll be a utilitarian little guy over there, and I just need to figure out where exactly I'm going to put it and how far away I can get it before Universal Control stops working. So we'll see how this goes. It's going to be an interesting experiment.
An M3 Mac in order to basically not use it and just enable your two iPads to work together.
Yeah.
I mean, your iPads could be close enough that you could touch each of them without it. But...
It's actually very similar to buying an iPhone just to get a blue bubble in your Android.
Okay, yes, that's true.
No, actually the proceeds from my MacBook being sold will be buying the Mac Mini. So no money, it will be a net transition. Right. But the Mac...
No money was harmed. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Just to be clear, like if I was starting from scratch day one, I probably wouldn't do this, right? So, the only reason why I have a MacBook in the first place is because I moved to being Mac only for about 18 months to about 2 years, whatever that timeline was. I was using it full time, and I still use it every now and then in my shift. It's just now it's like, well, do I really need a MacBook when I can take my iPad with me as my portable computer? So I'm just going to trade for a desktop situation for the Mac and kind of retire it to its corner and let it run whatever it needs to run for my job until one day maybe the iPad will be able to take over those things as well, including recording this podcast.
This episode of the Apple Insider podcast is brought to you by Magic Lasso Adblock. Do you want to experience twice as fast load times as Safari on your iPhone, iPad and Mac? Then download Magic Lasso Adblock, the ad blocker designed for you. It's easy to set up, blocks all YouTube ads, and doubles the speed at which Safari loads. Magic Lasso is an efficient, high-performance and native ad blocker. With over 5,000 5-star reviews, it's simply the best Safari ad blocker for your iPhone, iPad and Mac. Magic Lasso blocks all intrusive ads, trackers and annoyances, letting you experience a faster, cleaner and more secure web browsing experience. And unlike some other ad blockers, Magic Lasso respects your privacy and doesn't accept payment from advertisers. Online privacy isn't just something you should be hoping for. Stop being followed by ads around the web by blocking all ad trackers and ensuring that your browsing history is not harvested by ad networks. The app also blocks over 10 types of YouTube ads, including all video ads, banner ads, search ads, and suggested product ads. So, join over 280,000 users and download Magic Lasso Adblock from the App Store. Or, as a special offer for Apple Insider listeners, go to www.magiclasso.co/AppleInsider to receive 1 month's free access to all the app's features. That's www.magiclasso.co/AppleInsider to receive 1 month's free access to all features. Thanks again to Magic Lasso Adblock for their support of this show. I'm conscious of the fact that we have moved away from iPhones versus Android into these other areas, which is what I would like, except there is this one other story that I've only heard the headline about, that there are Android phones that advertisers can use to listen somehow to users. Do you know about this, or am I having nightmares and asking you about them? That's not real, is it?
So
it's real.
I think since about, I don't know, the dawn of the smartphone, just start playing the 2001 Space Odyssey music here.
As featured gorgeously at the start of Barbie. Let's just say that. Okay, moving on.
But yes, basically since social media started becoming a big aspect of our lives, people started noticing targeted ads. So it was kind of one of those old wives' tales, rumor type things of, there's no way this ad on Instagram would show up unless it knew I was talking to my friend about towels, right? Like, I didn't type towels into a search bar. I didn't go to Amazon and order towels. It just showed up in my Instagram. How did they know? They must have been listening. And it's this has been such a pervasive, like, concept for almost a decade that it's just people ask any layman on the street and they'll say, yeah, of course it's listening. How else would it know X, Y, Z about me? I'm here to tell you, no, that's pretty much never been the case, at least on iPhone, because Apple has really locked down how its microphones work, and apps now especially, I mean, I'm not going to say for all time, but let's at least say in the last few years, apps loudly tell you when they're using your microphone or your camera.
Yes.
So it's just not happening on iPhone. There was a brief time when Instagram was trying to be clever and always have the viewfinder open even when you aren't taking a photo, and that was very quickly, oops, that was a bug, guys. Definitely not on purpose, and they fixed it. So there's been instances of that, but again, anytime your microphone is actively listening to you on your phone, or like location gets me every time. I'm like, what is the location guy shows up and I'm like, what is using my location? It's always the weather. It's every time it's the weather.
Yes, same here. Yes.
But the weather app is not listening to you either. Don't worry. So anyway, all this time it's been a rumor. But I can tell you, and Apple has, I think, released a statement on this actually. No, the iPhone is not listening to you. Third-party apps just don't have the ability. Any malicious ones that are caught in the act are banned or whatever. It's just not happening. But Cox Media Group has a page on their website. There's this kind of advertising firm. I don't know. They tell people we can get you information no one else has. And there was a page on their website that basically just straight up said, it's true, your devices are listening to you. We use active listening to find out everything we need to know about your customers, so you know exactly what they need in a moment. If they mention that they're about to order an Uber, that it's already on your lock screen, right? Like, it's just that kind of like really creepy thing. And it's this investigation from 404 Media, a relatively new website that's been spun up by some industry veterans. Recommend it. Go check it out. 404 Media. But anyway, they called them out on this page existing, and it disappeared for at least a couple days, and then it came back because it's such a strong advertising point that they want these people, like companies, to come use them. But again, it basically boils down to, yes, there's a way for them to do this. They're kind of using, we don't know, because it's like their kind of trade secret, but they're telling developers and advertisers how to get around like Android systems to listen to people, so they can automatically, like the next ad they see, the next notification they get, whatever, be ready waiting because you just mentioned it in a conversation. And it's really creepy, and I expect will possibly lead to some sort of lawsuit at some point, because that's just a terrible invasion of privacy. But people buy televisions that watch them on their couch and record when they raise their hand, so I don't know how much people really care about privacy these days, honestly.
There is a bit of me that thinks presumably any listening is done through machine learning or whatever. It isn't actually some poor soul sitting in an office listening to all this, because the boring conversations they'd have to listen to.
Looking for keywords. Siri has kind of a thing, like we've talked... Oh, I saw it pop up on my iPad. It has kind of a thing where it's always kind of... The last 10 seconds of audio are available to Siri at all times. Because it's basically recording and dumping it continuously on your device. And that's why when you say the wake word, it knows what you were saying before and after the wake word, and can give you whatever context it needs. And if you have the share recordings with Apple, there's a chance that whoever is going through the recordings to, correct whatever it gets wrong, might get a few seconds around the wake word, and that's just a warning that pops up. That's a known thing. This isn't a big secret. This isn't a conspiracy. It's just how it works, and it's just one of those things of when you invite microphones or cameras into your home, you need to know how they work, because Apple might be going the extra mile for privacy, but not everyone else, and not on an Android phone that Google just doesn't have any control over. So,
I was always taught in radio to regard any microphone as live. Even if you can see the cable not plugged in, it's live, and you act accordingly. Isn't there a famous thing with Ronald Reagan having made some joke about nuclear war or something, thinking the microphones were off? And obviously it was a joke. Nobody thought it was real, but still, it caused some kind of minor scandal.
They're always listening. I will say, so just as a disclaimer, let's see, I think, Google gave us a statement on our story. I think we had to add it afterwards. Google gave us basically anything that's been running Android 11 or newer, which basically came out in 2020. Quote, "For years, Android has prevented apps from collecting audio when they're not being actively used, and whenever an app activates a device's microphone, there is a prominent icon displayed in the status bar." I don't know if you've seen an Android status bar, William, but I don't know if anything there can be prominent. It's a mishmash of things. But just to give Google a break here and Android a break, yes, that's probably the case. It's just whatever this company's doing, they found a way around it, and that's the story, is they've figured out how to do this. Maybe it requires devices on Android 10 or earlier. Maybe it's those food stamp phones we talked about. I don't know. It's just interesting that they're making this claim so brazenly that they can do this. But Apple Insider listeners, take heed. You're fine. Apple's iPhone, there's just no circumnavigating the way they have their systems built, so don't worry about it.
I was just wondering why this came up now, but I would never have conceived that a company would boast about being able to. Actually, I quite like the idea that somebody at Apple hears me swearing at Siri, because I've still got this thing where if I ask my watch to set a timer for 10 minutes, I will see written on the screen of the watch, set a timer for 10 minutes, and it will run a timer instead for 11 hours, 16 minutes, 42 seconds, some crazy-ass thing that's different from what I've said. And I can't work that out at all. So if a bit of swearing down the line helps or something, I'm getting embarrassed now. Let's move on.
I've written the long-term review for the Apple Watch Series 9 that will be published about the same day it gets banned, so we'll see how that goes. Right.
I don't know why that's so funny, but
I've been thinking about that. I was finishing it up yesterday. I'm like, wait a minute. When am I going to publish this? But so I wanted to write a long-term review because Double Tap and stuff like Health with Siri just wasn't available when it was released, and I really wanted to discuss those things. And I go into like what is happening with Siri and why it's such an odd thing. And again, Apple's just adding another layer of complexity for users who care about privacy, how do you know it's on device? Some things aren't. We know that. So some things are going to get sent back to the internet to get processed. There's no indication of that. You don't know unless it's a health query. But guess what, William? Not all health queries are created equal. You can't do anything in the health app. It's specific things. But what specific things? We don't know because Apple doesn't like giving us information. You can tell it how much you weigh. You can ask how much you slept last night, but you cannot tell it that you had a glass of water. So it's just it's mind-boggling to me. And I wish, documentation. I know Apple does actually a pretty decent job these days. They used to be just zero. There's actually like a 400-page PDF on how to use an Apple Watch, but there's still no information in there beyond maybe 5 example queries of what to ask Siri on device on your Apple Watch. So I just. Yeah. So read that review if you want some more information on that, and Double Tap, because I do have things to say about Double Tap. So
I always like the fact that Apple Insider reviews end with a section that's called "Should you buy?" but in this case, it's "Can you buy?"
Right.
That's just, okay. I'm also embarrassed to say I'm ridiculously tempted by 400 pages about the Apple Watch.
It's the Apple user guide. So Apple actually publishes, I don't know, I know we mentioned it on the show before because we kind of stumbled into one. I don't know how long they've existed, at least at this depth, but this isn't the Tips app. This isn't the little email PDF that they send you or whatever comes in your box. There's like an official Apple PDF for each of your devices that goes into every single available feature and option. And the Apple Watch Series 9 is like 384 PDF pages. So I haven't looked at the iPhone, so just imagine how long the iPhone would be.
Yes.
So, it's interesting that they exist. I'll go ahead and say I did a perusal of it for my review. There's nothing in there we don't already know. It's not some secret. It's not going to tell you the location of the Holy Grail or anything. But it's definitely interesting that Apple's finally publishing that stuff. But still, I would give anything to have a 400-page documentation on Siri, because everyone's always like, what can I ask it? What can I do? And it's like, well, you kind of figure it out. And then once you know a thing that works, just use that command every time, because you don't know if a different version of that command is going to work. And believe me, I love Siri. I have it all over my house. I have HomePods everywhere. I use it on my iPad, whatever. I love it. But, man, does it need documentation? It needs to work. Apple just needs to tell us what to do with it. But rant over. We got some more stuff to talk about.
We have, and I said earlier that I was writing computer manuals. I actually miss the fact that manuals used to be written. I mean, there's a whole series of books that David Pogue's company did a missing manual series, the book that should have been in the box, and they're really well written. OmniFocus 4, the productivity app, came out this week, and the Omni Group just superb written documentation for all of its apps. So I really appreciate when something is done that well, but it's rare. Now, I'm glad to hear Apple is doing that.
I remember the running joke just being it reads like a stereo manual, but now we don't have the stereo manuals. We've scared them all off, and now we're wishing for them to come back. So,
thinking of things, though, that I missed while I was away, and that now, even more than before, I think you are the man to ask about. We now know everything, don't we, apparently, about the iPad in 2024. So hit me. What are we definitely getting?
We have an idea. Definitely OLED seems to be the thing. Everyone's producing it. The supply chain's just all about, Apple ordered millions of pieces of OLED or whatever. So at the very least, the iPad Pros are going to move to OLED, which means the 12.9-inch and 11-inch will both be on the same display technology again. We're probably going to still see ProMotion. We're going to see an OLED, better backlighting than mini LEDs, so even better blacks, even better picture. Just watch out for that burn-in. Hopefully playing games on an iPad won't elicit item icons in Resident Evil or something in the corner. But yes, we'll see how that rollout goes. There's not much you can do with a flat slab of glass and aluminum. Everyone's like, oh, the iPad, what are they going to do? It's still going to look like an iPad. I know this design what was it, 2018? We first got this kind of flat-sided, big design, no home button, Face ID. I don't think we're going to see any difference for maybe a very long time, maybe until the next paradigm shift in computing. It's just, this is it. We've reached it. The pinnacle of tablet computing is a tablet, funny enough.
What about bigger than 12.9-inch size? Will we get a desk-sized iPad?
I always
Yeah.
think back
That'd be
to,
nice.
I remember Samsung or somebody was advertising coffee tables that could play Angry Birds and stuff, and I always just found those so fascinating. People dragging their documents around. I was like, this is so neat. But then when you think about it, it's like, there's no software optimized for this. It's going to be terrible. But so a larger iPad is definitely in the books. The iPad Pros could see as much as a 14 or even 16-inch iPad Pro. It loses its handheld nature at that point, but I think this is Apple's way of giving us touch at that size, whereas they're not going to do it on Mac as far as we can tell. But the size isn't so important because you can connect it to an external display. I've said it before. I would probably trade everything for an iPad mini with an M3 processor, Pro Motion, and a Thunderbolt connector, and just plug it into my external display, and that'd be my entire computer setup. But as far as technology goes, there's some rumors around how it's going to be implemented. So MagSafe is all we got. The word MagSafe. We don't know what kind of MagSafe. There's two kinds. The Mac version, which prevents people from tripping over your laptop cable and throwing it into the wall. And then there's the iPhone version, which keeps your iPhone safely elevated so you can see standby mode. And there's no telling which one we're going to get, because how do you implement these technologies into an iPad? I wrote a whole thing kind of postulating on this rumor. Basically, I don't believe iPhone MagSafe. Now, there have been a few rumors, including reliable sources like Mark Gurman, who are talking about a glass-backed iPad with MagSafe, which is possible, but I just don't know what people expect from that. Your existing iPhone accessories aren't going to work with it for the most part. Maybe just like the little puck on the cable, because you can slap it on the back and it'll charge fine. But like the bespoke stands for your iPhone are not going to work with your iPad, because they don't account for the space an iPad takes up. They don't account for the weight of an iPad. So you're going to need iPad-specific MagSafe accessories that will probably be backwards compatible with iPhone, but who knows? Maybe not. Maybe it requires a bigger puck, and now it's just another accessory added to the ecosystem rather than a universal one. I don't see how this is going to be great, especially since charging an iPad at 15 watts, no. Just no thank you. I mean, it might make in-wall iPads look nicer, right? If you want a mountable iPad to your wall and you can now have a charging pad inside of it, that's all great. But I think the alternative here is what already exists on the iPad, and that's a smart connector. And funny enough, MagSafe on Macs are just pogo pins. This ancient technology where you have a magnet, press pins together, and suddenly you have electricity flowing. I think we're just going to see that evolve on iPad. The smart connector is already a pogo pin. They can just add more of them to the back, make it able to do more stuff, because it's already getting data. I mean, I was thinking about this. You put your iPad in a Magic Keyboard, and it gets the mouse and keyboard through those pins, right? It's not a Bluetooth connection. And I know that's very little data to transfer, but it's still data. So that could evolve. That could allow for USB 3 connections in the future. We don't know. But this more advanced aluminum MacBook style Magic Keyboard connecting over a more powerful pogo pin that allows for maybe a USB data transfer, so you can connect a hard drive to the keyboard. Like, this is the stuff I'm thinking about is possible, but again, we don't know. That's the route I'm taking. What do you think, William?
I think I'm hearing you correctly here. There's not going to be a foldable or a rollable iPad next
Not anytime
year.
Soon.
No.
That date keeps shifting into the distance, and here's my theory. Apple's been working on, Apple Car, Vision Pro, and this foldable phenomenon all pretty much since about 2015. It's like it's almost like all these like tickers tapes started running, and they're to see which one would come out first. And the Apple Car keeps getting pushed because it's expensive, and just very difficult to manufacture your own vehicle. And Apple just doesn't want to enter a market that's actually declining. What's the word? Interest on electric vehicles right now. So it's just a bad time for Apple to enter. So that's being pushed back to 2028, 2029 timeframe.
Goodness.
Then there's the foldable phenomenon. Very big, and when Samsung first came out with theirs, and it was just like, wow, this is great, except when it wasn't, because they would just break and shatter and crease and whatnot, and they're still kind of dealing with those issues. Less so, but they still exist, guys. They're very pretty phones, tablets, whatever. They're just not ready for Apple's level of care, because they do care and they don't want to sell someone something that's going to break after being open and shut 107 times. So I think the foldable fad is slowly fading. I don't think it's ever going to make it to be mainstream enough that Apple's going to bother. Yes, they've been testing this. Yes, there's patents. Yes, there's even foldable iPhones running iPad OS inside of Apple. I'm sure of it. But that doesn't mean the technology will ever see the light of day, because it's just not going to sell. It's better to focus on what they already have, which is the iPhone, the flagship. People keep trying to replace the little the candy bar slab that we carry in our pocket. I don't think it's going to change. I think they're just going to get better at what we do. And where we are now is Vision OS. And what's the future of augmented reality? Instead of a foldable screen that you put in your pocket, just having a augmented reality overlay when you look at a specific part of your hand wearing these glasses, or like you pull out your iPhone, but it displays all this information in the air based on, image tracking or whatever. That's the future, rather than a clumsy piece of hardware that can be broken when you fold it the wrong way. So that's my take on this technology, and why we keep hearing foldables getting pushed back further and further into the future until they just no longer are talked about.
Right. Okay. So
sorry for the tangent.
Me. Yeah. No, you've destroyed my hopes. The deadlines are pushing back, but that actually does remind me of the one thing I'm mad keen to talk about today, which is Apple vowed that there would be new CarPlay in new cars by the end of 2023, and with about 6.5 pixels to go before the end of the year, they've made it, haven't they? Kind of, sort of, a bit. Can you go out and buy me a Porsche with CarPlay today?
It's the classic Apple move. They always said that they would announce more information by the end of 2023, and they have. That there will be vehicles in 2024 that you can buy with the futuristic CarPlay. Porsche and Aston Martin, right?
Yeah, I've got to say, not cars that I would be in the market for, really. Well, mostly because they're very expensive, but also,
wait a minute,
I'm not that interested in cars. Cars to get me somewhere to go with CarPlay on the way, please.
You're telling me
disagree?
You don't drive an Aston Martin like Vanquish around like James Bond? No?
Well, you know the thing where the guns stick out? They were forever jamming, and I was taking them to the service garage. So I just gave up. Really?
Oh, of course.
Frankly, it's just not worth it. No. But you're a Porsche. Is it Porsche or Porsche?
It depends on who you ask. I'm a Porsche man. Porsche. Just
okay. I'm now thinking there's an Actra, a Porsche de Rossi, but that's probably spelled differently. Okay.
The Porsche 911 is a beautiful vehicle with a long history. I'm going to buy a Honda Civic. It's fine. It's okay. No, this is great. I'm excited to see that this is moving forward. I don't know why there was such a dead zone in news about this. In 2 or 3 years, maybe we'll see this come down to, $25,000 vehicles instead of $60,000 vehicles.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I'm excited to see this evolve. I wish just somebody, I don't care, make a business. You will make the money. Build full internal replacement systems for older vehicles, right? Give me the futuristic CarPlay in a 2001 Nissan Skyline, just because, why not? And add Apple Car Key while you're at it in my fantasy perfect car. But
well, you say that now, but give it a little bit longer, and you're going to just forget CarPlay, and you will yearn for General Motors and their system. You'll want that in your car, won't you?
I didn't want to get too much into this because we talked about it at length last week with Andrew. But just to recap, General Motors guy in charge of infotainment, personal, not GM stance, said that CarPlay is unsafe, and that was one of the reasons why they wanted to get away from CarPlay.
Sorry, CarPlay is unsafe?
Yes, you missed the story. So the head of infotainment, I don't want to get too far into the weeds here.
Sure.
But he said something along the lines of people are running their Android phones or their iPhones through the system, and it starts glitching out while they're driving, and resets or shuts down, whatever, it just has trouble. So they have to reach their phone anyway, and it creates hazards on the roadway if you're using CarPlay or Android Auto. To which I responded in the article of, yeah, if the systems are failing, it's because your infotainment system's processor is garbage and you need to upgrade it. Sounds like, a manufacturing issue, not CarPlay, because iPhone's handling a lot of that processing power, not the car. It's just a display with a touchscreen. Sorry, but anyway, so they basically, again, GM's not attached to this stance. They gave us a statement, but he was insinuating GM's new infotainment system would be so excellent because it allows people to do everything that a smartphone can do without their smartphone, so they would never reach for it. And turns out that's not true. I don't have the stories in the show notes. Okay. This is easily findable. Just search for GM.
Or just take it for granted that, of course, this is the case. This is always the case.
Just search for GM Stranded, and you'll find a couple of stories, because there's a new Chevy vehicle whose name escapes me that has this new GM system that people have been testing. It left one guy stranded in the middle of nowhere in Virginia because the system kept rebooting and it needed a hard reset and a software update. Same story for a guy, I think, in California. Multiple journalists have reported basically that this full scale GM system, it's not working. They're having a lot of issues out of the gate in these test vehicles, and it kind of shows, yeah, this is hard. And yes, these stories center around the entire vehicle system and this electric car with a battery. So GM does need to figure that out. CarPlay isn't going to save them there. But the fact that the mapping and everything is attached to it too, why not take some of that weight off of your shoulders and let someone else handle it that knows what they're doing, like Google or Apple, for instance?
I'll tell you what, you had me at GM Stranded. That's it. I'm off to look that up. There'll be a link to it as soon as I found it in the show notes. But on that bombshell, Wes, thank you for this, filling me in. I feel like I've caught up with everything and that the holiday is long behind me now. Can I have another one next week? There's probably a Christmas thing coming up, but we'll be here in Christmas week with all of the news that Apple brings out over there's going to be something, isn't there? Yeah. Tune in next week to see if there is anything to say, or it's a 1 minute long episode. But in the meantime, Wes, thank you very much, and we'll see you all next week.
See you then.
Okay.